So I'm asking you to write notes where you write notes, not start typing stuff into day 54. We'll go over there and type things in day 54 in just a second. Monday we learned about array lists and learned two methods. Monday we learned how to spell .size and .add methods for array lists. Today we're going to learn the rest. Today we learn the rest of the ones we need to know. So there is, I'll just write it like this, list.add e for, we're just assuming that's an object we're adding. This, I, comma, e. This adds object e at index I. Moves items over to make room. We'll do an example, don't worry. It's kind of like an insert function. It'll take the thing you're trying to add and put it right at the index you've asked it to put, and everything starting with what was already there gets bumped to the right, basically, gets their index numbers get increased.
And the ones before just stay where they are.
The ones before stay right where they are, yeah. But the starting with the one, like if we had an array list that was and if we had dog, cat, pig, and we said .add 1, comma, bird, we would have dog, bird, cat, pig, because and cat would now be index 2 instead of index 1. It doesn't get replaced. It just
It keeps spaces.
it moves everything over 1. You know they all have an index number internally. All right, the next one, list.set I, comma, e, replaces object at index I with e. So this doesn't change anything's index values. It just goes to item I and replaces it with whatever you're sending over. And list.remove removes item at index I, adjusts indices for everything. So remove, there's different forms of remove, but the form that you have to know for the AP test is one where you send over an index value, an integer, and it finds that item in the list and it just takes it out of the list. So anything that was after that on the list bounces down, gets a lower index value. We'll do examples. And then I guess I'm feeling a little bit like I should just put our regular add on here. So add, there's two versions of add, then we have set, we also have get. So these are all the methods you have to know. Two versions of add. What's it called when you have two methods with the same name? Overloading, method overloading. You can overload constructors, you can overload methods, but overloading is when you have two or more things with the same name, but they have different parameters. That's how Java tells them apart.
don't make two the same with the same parameter, especially
The compiler won't let you make two with the same, yeah. All right, you all got this? Now we're going to do it. So go over to, I asked you to download day54opener.java. And if you scroll down, you'll see I put a class called student in here. Students have a first name, a last name, and GPA. There's one constructor that takes a first name and last name and sets the GPA to 0. There's a set GPA method that takes a double and sets the GPA to that. There's a get GPA method that returns it. There's a toString that prints it out all pretty. So I want us to make an array list of student objects. So let's do that. Array list. Remember, you put the type of object here. Let's call it school. That's what you got to have here. And let's add 3 students. So see if you can make up your own name. I mean, we could try compiling this. Control R. It compiles fine. Hey. Figured. No problem. So up here, school.add. It's not actually as simple as you might think. You can't just put a name here.
You have to do the entire thing.
Like, you could try this. If we try it, we're going to say there's no suitable method found for add string string. When you say add, what it wants inside here is a student object, not somebody's first name and last name. The array list doesn't know about the students. It's just going to store a list of students. So what you have to do here, if you just want to add a new student, is say new student, and then put the first and last name in parentheses. And let's put a print school, just so we can have positive reinforcement. So now it's working. And I want you to add 2 more names. You can just copy that. And then make sure it compiles and runs. And right now we're getting the names just printing like this, and their GPAs in parentheses. It's just 0. Hunter, you get the file off my website? Yeah. Okay. Oh, I didn't do that.
Nice. .0 GPA.
Yeah, that's because we haven't set their GPA. So let's set their GPAs. So to set the first student's GPA, you have to say school.get 0. Set GPA. Let's give first person a 4.0. So if this were just a regular array of student objects, you would just say school square bracket 0 dot set GPA. But because it's an array list, you have to do the get method. I'm going to set them all to something. So you're going to set 0, 1, and 2. I want to set them to different numbers so we can. see something happening. And then, all right, let's see. Why are they all 0? Oh, because the print's before I set them, obviously. Better put the print at the bottom, everybody. Otherwise, you'll keep printing out the school where nobody has a GPA. That's better. Any questions about what's going on? So let's change our print. Instead of printing like this, I mean, you can leave that line there, I don't mind, but let's do an enhanced for loop. So say for student, I'm going to say student S from school, system.out.println S. And we run it, and now we get them in a row, one on each line. It's a little nicer. You know, if you were going to print out a list of 100 students, you wouldn't want them within square brackets all on one line like the default printing. So I'm just reminding you that when you use an enhanced for loop with ArrayLists, the ArrayList has a type of object, whether it's capital I integer or string or student or frog. And if you want to print using that, you have to put that object type right here. This S could be any variable name. It doesn't have to be S. And let's use a regular for loop now, just for practice. So see if you can write a regular for loop to print everything in the list, just like we did with this enhanced for loop. And then I'll do it.
For Spirit Week.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're a lower classman, can you stand up if you're dressed for Spirit Week? I had like 5 classrooms.
So lower class is dressed in white, yeah? Or blue?
White.
White.
Ben, you're a lower classman and you're leadership, and you're not white.
I guess I get. Now if you're an upperclassman.
Upperclassman wearing blue, stand up. 1, 2, 3. 9. And then I'm in blue.
Okay.
Yeah, good work, Ben. Good work, Ben.
That's what I'm talking about. So I know that was exciting, but let's write a regular for loop that prints out the contents of school. Still just 2 lines, but a little more complicated, right? But you got to use the get call if you want to get something to print. All right, so now I want us to use the add command where you add to a particular location. So let's add a new student at index 1. So you try. We're going to use the add I, comma E, where we're adding an object at index I. School's where they're all stored. So school.add. And then we say where we want to add it. I'm saying please put it at index 1. 1. And then new student. And then we have to put first and last inside there. And then we close parentheses. So student needs a first and a last name. Let's put this, by the way, let's put this above all our printing so we don't have to keep running into that problem. You know what I'm saying? Put it above all the printing so that we can see that it happened. So now we have, here are my students. Just added Frank Zappa at index 1, so then Annie and Alvin are bumped up. They're index 2 and 3 now. So.
Whoa.
So now I want to replace the first student with another student. So right after your add line, let's replace item 0. School.add, sorry, not add, set. We're going to set item 0 to a new student. So this is the set command where you set, we say, hey, replace item 0 with this new student. I don't care what names you use. See, we know there was a different name there before, and now that's how you use the set command. By the way, you could also, when you're trying to work with objects like students like this, you could say something like this: student Bill equals new student Bill D, and then you could say school.add Bill. That'll just add the Bill student to the end. You don't have to create the student in the add command. You could create it on its own line, and then just, this is a variable name. If you're doing something like a student, you would tend to do it the way we were doing it before, but I just added another student to the list. Hey, notice all these students we added after we set the GPAs, they all have 0 as their GPA, which is fine. Let's do a remove line. Let's remove the second to the last item in the list. So remove school.remove. You could count them, or you could do school.size. -1 would be the last item in the list, but -2 would be the second to last item in the list. So in my world, that should remove the one named Alvin. And we'll see. Gone, yeah. But you could just put a number in there if you know what number of whatever you're trying to remove. Questions? Got 2 more important points. So back to where you're writing notes. If you are going to use a loop to remove items from an array list, you must start from the end and work backwards. To avoid problems, I'll put an exclamation point. If you're going to remove things from an array list using a loop, in most cases, it's absolutely critical that you start from the end and work backwards. Just a traditional for loop, what happens is if you're going forward in the loop, and you're like, oh, I found something I want to delete, you delete it, and then all of a sudden, all the remaining items in the array list have, all their index values have been dropped by 1. Meanwhile, your for loop is like, oh, I'm going to go to the next one. So it ends up skipping a value, not removing something it was supposed to. I think with my example, ArrayList, we're going to be fine. I mean, we'll be able to see this problem. So, up here, let's make a for loop. Let's do it the wrong way first, all right? For int I equals 0, I less than school.size, I++, and let's do a little if statement. If school.getI, that gets the current student, dot get GPA equals 0. I'm going to remove everybody who has a 0 GPA. School dot remove I. So this is going to have an undesired effect because we didn't go backwards. But put this above your printing. Hopefully you can see what's going on. We're looking at the school and we're saying, hey, if you get the GPA and it's 0, then let's remove that student. Like, let's say we're cleaning up a list and there's some students that did not ever attend or didn't get their transcripts sent in. All right, so then let me get rid of all the extra printing so we just have one thing printing.
Do you want us to get rid of that stuff?
You don't have to. It's just so you can be clear. So you'd say, well, why is Frank still in the list? I thought we went through and got rid of everybody. Maybe right above this, I'll print that way. We'll print right before we do this deleting. So we started with Zedra, Frank, Annie, and Bill. We should have deleted Zedra, Frank, and Bill, but instead only Zedra and Bill got deleted. Let me show you what happened. When I is 0, it finds Zedra. It says, all right, hey, we got to delete Zedra. Boom, gone. Next time through the loop, I is 1. But check this out. Frank's now item 0, and we never checked Frank. So we're now on item 1, Annie. Annie doesn't get deleted. And now we're on Bill, and Bill's a 0, we delete him. This is what happens when you're moving forward, because every time you delete something, everything that's ahead of you bounces down an index value. And sure, you could write a loop, like a while loop, that didn't have this problem, but it's easier and more just good programming style to start from the end and go backwards. So let's fix this to start from the end. So instead of I being equal to 0, start it off at school size minus 1. And then we want to keep going as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. We want to go all the way down to the first element. And then the rest of the code doesn't change. We're still checking, hey, is the current item 0? If it is, delete it. But when we're going backwards from the end, when you delete one, there's no problem about losing track of where you are because you've deleted it and now your I value goes 1 lower, so you're going to be fine. So when we run this, unless I made a mistake.
I
minus 1 what?
minus.
Yeah, I went bigger, so it crashed immediately. Thank you. Yeah, so this time it worked fine. First it deleted Bill, it didn't delete Annie, then it deleted Frank, then it deleted the first one. All right, so just to emphasize this, please try to remember this. If you're going to use a loop to remove items from an array list, you must start from the end and work backwards to avoid problems. All right, and the last thing, last point for today, array lists only hold object data, not primitive data. So object data like strings, student, frog, whatever other new classes you design, and then not integers, doubles, booleans. And that's why this is where we use capital I integer. So if you want to make, like, it's totally legit to want to have an array list that has numbers in it. And if you're going to do that, if they're integer numbers, you just make the array list with capital I integer instead of int. And so we're going to go do that. And there's a capital D double, which we learned about months ago, and there's capital B Boolean if you need to be doing this. And technically, there's this whole process that Java's doing behind the scenes. It's called boxing and unboxing. So when you add a regular integer to an array list, Java turns it into a capital I integer object. It seems inefficient, and it probably is, but it's the way it works. But then when you get a number out, it turns it back into a regular integer for you. You don't have to worry about it. They used to try to make me tell you all about that, but I'm like, the compiler doesn't care, and it acts just like it's working fine. Why do we bother? So let's right here, after all that other stuff we've been doing, let's make a new array list. Array list, capital I integer. Let's call it nums equals new array list integer. It's just good to type this more than 5 times. And let's add some numbers. Nums.add. Make sure this all works. Guess it was before my last print, but you see it work there. So except for having to do capital I integer in that one spot, it works just like as if it was a regular integer. Instead of printing all of nums, I could say get 0, and it would give me the first one. It's just like any other array list. All right, that's it for the note.